Welcome to Proud to be a Baby Boomer, Episode 4, Boomer Toys, brought to you by Lee WTV. I'm your host, Ed Schultz. In this series, we're taking a look at some of the cultural influences that the baby boomer generation had. Today, we're going to examine 5 cultural icons, toys that we baby boomers used to play with. Now, the first icon, which I'm sure you'll recognize right away, is one that made its debut in 1959 after businesswoman Ruth Handler had a trip to Germany. Now, this is a toy that has ended up to this day selling over 1 billion, but it has a rather sordid past. Let's take a look.
It all started at the dance. Barbie, the famous teenage fashion model doll by Mattel, felt that this was to be a special night. And then it happened. She met Ken. And somehow she knew that she and Ken would be going together. So now Mattel brings you Ken, Barbie's boyfriend, with a complete wardrobe of perfectly tailored clothes of unmatched quality. Now Ken and Barbie meet for lunch at school, go to fraternity parties, and just relax together. Think of the fun you'll have taking Barbie and Ken on dates, dressing each one just right. You'll find Ken wherever toys are sold. Look for this special tag that tells you he's the genuine Ken. Get both Barbie and Ken and see where the romance will lead. It could lead to this. And remember, you can tell it's Mattel. It's swell.
In 1956, Ruth Handler, whose husband just happened to be the co-founder of the Mattel Toy Company, was watching her daughter Barbara playing with paper dolls. And she noticed that usually dolls were babies. They weren't older children or adults. So she began to think about maybe a more mature doll for her daughter. During a trip to Europe, Ruth noticed an adult-type doll that was available in Germany called Lily. Now, Lily was based on a comic strip that was very popular about a character named Lily who was actually a high-priced call girl. Ruth adapted the idea, and the first Barbie doll was introduced in both blonde and brunette in March of 1959. Since that time, Barbie and her extended universe have not only become popular toys, but movie stars as well.
Hello, hola, bonjour, and ni hao. Welcome to our new home. In case you're just tuning in, I'm Barbie Roberts, and I am so excited, I don't even know where to start.
How about by lifting something?
Oops, sorry. Sure thing. I can multitask with the best of them. That's Ken, BFF, and neighbor since forever.
Since the last time you did this?
Yep, when we first moved to Malibu.
And of course, eventually, boys began to feel left out because it wasn't socially acceptable for them to play with dolls. Well, in 1963, this gave birth to the very first action figure.
G.I. Joe, fighting man from head to toe, on the land, on the sea, in the air.
G.I. Joe attacks! Boom, boom! G.I. Joe takes the hill! Bam, bam! Horrific battle!
Terrific equipment to have a battle with. When you get G.I. Joe and the authentic G.I. Joe equipment, you'll have the greatest realism, the greatest fun you ever had in playing soldier. Box after box of authentic uniforms and equipment, so you can change your G.I. Joe soldier into a camouflage Marine ready for battle, a Navy frogman with complete scuba suit and inflatable life raft, an Air Force pilot with high-altitude helmet and air vest. Get G.I. Joe and get G.I. Joe equipment, so you can set up exciting battle action whenever you want. Remember, only G.I. Joe is G.I. Joe.
The Hasbro Toy Company actually imprinted their trademark in a very unusual place. G.I. Joe's right buttock. The success of G.I. Joe led to all sorts of other action figures and accessories, as well as cartoons and movies.
Yo, Joe! He'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there.
This has only just begun.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. The summer of 1960 seemed innocent enough, but for Eddie it was a time of transition. Transition from elementary school to junior high, and transition from childhood to adolescence. Although he enjoyed watching the golden age of TV and playing with his best friend Doug, this young man would be faced with tragedy and loss. Under the Pignut Tree, by Edward L. Schultz, is a charming tale, simply told in a very readable style, a poignant story of nostalgia. Under the Pignut Tree is available from Amazon.com. And while you're there, check out the sequel, Beyond the Pignut Tree. There were also toys that were not gender-specific, such as Mr. Potato Head, which was first invented in 1949, but manufactured and distributed by Hasbro Toys in 1952.
Hey, it's Hasbro. Hasbro makes toys. What's new, Hasbro?
Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head with their own cars and trailers. That's what's new. See, Mr. Potato Head has a car and boat trailer. And there's a car and shopping trailer for his wife, Mrs. Potato Head. It's such fun to do and so easy. Like this. Take any fruit or vegetable. Just stick in eyes, then ears, and then the mouth. You can make the funniest looking people in the whole world. Potato Head people look different every time you make them. Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head with cars and trailers come in $1 and $2 sizes.
Originally, Mr. Potato Head was made to be used with a real vegetable, such as a potato. However, after a while, there were complaints about irresponsibility in terms of using food because it was wasteful. So eventually, Hasbro introduced a plastic potato. And then there was Slinky.
Slinky toys are fun toys. What walks downstairs alone or in pairs and makes a slinkety sound? A spring, a marvelous thing. Everyone knows it's Slinky. It gives a big lift when wrapped as a gift, a very likable toy. It's falling in place, brings smiles to your face, something kids can enjoy. It's Slinky, for fun it's a wonderful toy. It's Slinky, it's fun for a girl and a boy. And Slinky mobiles with big slinky wheels and pistons that move as you go. It makes a great sound when you pull it around. The driver's an old-timey fellow. A slinky dog, a slinky train, many more wonderful toys. You tug the string, they do their thing. They're great for girls and boys. They're Slinkies, really wonderful toys. They're Slinkies, they're fun for girls and boys.
Slinky, Slinky Dog, Slinky Mobile, all Slinky toys sold separately by James Industries.
Slinky was a pre-compressed helical spring toy that was invented in the early 1940s by a man named Richard James. Slinky was first sold at Gimbel's department store in Philadelphia in November of 1945, and it was such a hit that they sold out their entire inventory of 400 units in 90 minutes. And it went on. In its first 60 years, Slinky actually sold 300 million units. And we'll finish this episode out with my favorite toy of all time. Back in those days, in the 50s, it was not considered politically incorrect to play cowboys and Indians. And so my favorite toy, which made its debut in 1957, was the Mattel Fanner 50 cap gun.
demonstration of the most authentic Western toy cap guns in the world. They're from Mattel. You can get any of Mattel's rifles or pistols separately or in sets. The Sundowner set, the Frontier set, the Buffalo Hunter set. All carry the rugged stamp of the Old West. You can tell they're Mattel. They're swell.
Why not?
Now, the Fanner 50 got its name because you could fan it easily because the back of the hammer was like this. And then the 50 comes from the fact that when you open it up, you can put 50 perforated roll caps inside. The caps would go down in here, come up here. The perforation would catch on these so that each time you shot one, it would keep it going, and the spent caps came out the other side. Now, there were various versions of the Fanner 50, some of which used shoot and shell cartridges, which actually had a little plastic bullet. Now, I don't have one of those, but I do have a number of fake bullets, which you could actually put inside. And although they didn't do anything, it felt really cool to be able to put a bullet inside your gun.
These are tales of Texas Rangers, a band of sturdy men. Always on the side of justice, they'll fight and fight again. All Texas Rangers sworn to duty, courageous, brave, and true. Ever marching, always ready.